Hi, my name's Lydia. I'm a clinical psychologist specialising in autism, and I'm in Newcastle. And Kim is going to speak to you about her wonderful foster son, Matt. Just to fill you in, we're actually, Newcastle is part of the NDIS trial. So Kim and I were nodding with a lot of the previous presentations because we've been riding that roller coaster for several years now. I've been part of NDIS since 2013. And it has been a roller coaster, sometimes on fire, but we're still there, and they're still working it out. And it'll continue to evolve and change, and we need to keep giving them feedback on what's working and what's not working so well. So today we wanted to talk about Matt and all of the great gains that he's made. Some of that through NDIS, a lot of that, frankly, to do with his wonderful foster family and his biological family and everyone who's been involved in supporting Matt. So I wanted to start with a video that was made for Foster Caring New South Wales. Yeah. It's just a short one, and it explains where Matt and his family have been coming from.
It's a typical long weekend.
Yes, Matt's been a very long weekend. Matt arrived with the support worker for the weekend and never left. He's been with us ever since. So Matt was 9 when Matt came to live with us and share our life. He was a very energetic young man, very, very busy, extraordinarily busy. Talked, but was difficult to understand some days. I decided to give up my full-time position and take on less hours, because Matt really required assistance at school and with other areas of his life. And so through that, we've been able to have a greater source of networks to support Matt.
It hasn't been an easy journey, but it's been a worthwhile journey. You just got to look at him. Things he can do now that he couldn't do. He's just good. And I'm getting emotional at the moment, just thinking about the things that he has done. Very, very proud of him. He should be proud of himself too.
So do you want to sprinkle some cheese? Maybe give it a bit of a toss.
No, I'll do it.
Okay, you do that. There you go.
Can I have some cheese?
You've got to like cheese, haven't you?
Yeah.
We've always been very honest with Matt. So whatever plan or new skills he's had to learn, we sit down and work out a common goal of what we think we need to do this year or in the next 6 months. So Matt's been a part of that journey too. He goes to work 3 days a week. That's a huge part of Matt's life.
Do all through here, Matty?
Yep.
Righto?
Yep.
All through here?
Yep.
Yep. When you've done that, come see me. Happy days. Yeah, Matt goes real good. Obviously he's got a disability. At times he's challenging. It's a tough task some days for Matt. Why shouldn't he be able to work? It's not his fault he's got a disability, and everybody should be able to work.
Half of it.
When we got him, he couldn't use a knife and fork. He'd had a tough life, and to look where he is now, doing what he's doing is unbelievable. It's a true bloody great thing. Mum and Dad grabbed him and taught him all these skills in life, and he accepted us as a family, which is even better.
What's a disability? It's just that Matthew's different. My eldest Matthew is different. I'm different. It's like looking after your normal children, your own children. That's not easy work either. That's hard work, but we all do it. To do it and take care of another child that belongs to someone else, and for that child to call you Mum and Dad, works.
Okay, so this is Matt when he came to Kim and Tom's family. You can see that he's had lots of adventures, got to ride planes and meet crocodiles, and he's a really lovely person to work with. So this is his biological family, Mum and Dad and his brother and his grandma. And this is his foster family. And you can see that he's got not only the support of his mum and dad and brothers and sisters, but a big extended family who are all looking out for Matt as well. So the first thing you want to know about Matt is that he is a big Knights fan. So he often likes to talk about football. And when you saw in the video he was looking at that book, that was a list of all the players' names that he's written out many times. And many books. He has a very large collection of Knights memorabilia. We did have some chats about how many times he's allowed to text the Knights players. And, you know, he talks to them on Facebook and all those sorts of things. So we had to put some limits around that because you don't want to be accused of stalking. But, yeah, he has, you know, he's had some really great adventures. He's been able to meet some of the players, as you can see. Okay, so as a psychologist, the reason why Matt and his family came to me, it was a little bit after that video was made, and Matt had lost his job, unfortunately, due to some challenging behaviours. We won't go into those because they're private, but he'd had an incident at work, and unfortunately they'd had to cease his employment. And we wanted to make sure that that sort of thing wasn't going to happen again. So I'm still the chick from Mayfield who told him he's not allowed to do that. So I'm sure his parents said that too. But I spelled out exactly what was going to happen if he continued down that path, and he hasn't. And we've found other things for him to do, other ways of getting his needs met so that he didn't need to resort to that kind of behaviour that was getting him into trouble. So there was that part of what drove, you know, coming to see me. But while I was working with this family, I guess, you know, there was the immediate crisis, but then there was also some stuff to do with Matt was growing from an adolescent into a young man, an adult, and things needed to change in terms of helping him to become more independent. And at the time that the family came to see me, it was pretty stressful. Yeah. So everyone was stressed. And as you've heard, it's really important for parents to have some time together, to actually say hello to each other and to recharge. But Matt was finding that really scary because of his trauma background. He felt like his parents were abandoning him if they went out for a coffee. He was worried. He wasn't able to verbalise it, but he was worried that they didn't love him anymore because they were excluding him from that activity. That wasn't the case at all. They just wanted to reconnect with each other, and they certainly spent lots of time with Matt, but he was really worried. So when he was really worried and they were out, he would do silly things. So this is a picture of what we sort of talked about, this cycle that kept happening. So everybody was quite stressed, and so Kim and Tom would think, okay, and Tom was having health problems and all sorts of things. There was a lot going on in the family, and it was reasonable for them to want to have a date night occasionally, or even to just go and get the groceries without taking Matt with them every second of the day. So sometimes they would want to take a break. And and so when that happened, Matt would become really stressed. And he might do things like he might decide to do a bit of cooking but leave the stove on. Or he might decide that he was going to go for a big wander through the neighbourhood, or perhaps visit some friends, when the rule was that he was supposed to be at home while they were out so that they knew where he was. And so when they came home, they would find the front door wide open, and then they would spend the next 3 to 4 hours tracking him down. And so that meant that there was more of that stress and frustration, and it sort of became quite negative because they were worried about his ability to be on his own safely, and so there was some talk of maybe you can't live here anymore, or you need to stop doing that so that if you don't stop doing that, then you'll have to move out. And then that was adding to the anxiety, and so they were getting more of this behaviour instead of less. So we wanted to change that. So the first thing that we talked about was sitting down, and I'm sure you saw in the video there was a lot of that anyway, but sitting down, Kim, Tom and Matt and listening to each other, and talking about emotions and that kind of stuff. So it was really important that we reassured Matt that his mum and dad would always love him. And also, one of the things that I did was explain that it's a normal thing for couples to want to spend time together. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It's just one of those things that couples do. They marry each other because they like each other and they want to spend a bit of time together. That's okay. So changing that conversation about you might need to leave home to we'd really like you to stay. How can we make sure that you can stay at home safely? So working on the positives. Luckily, this family have a great setup at home where we were able to set up a starter kind of apartment. So Matt's room actually has an ensuite and had cooking facilities and its own separate entrance. So it was linked to the rest of the house by a door that was lockable. And so most of the time, that door would be open and he could, have the full run of the house. But what we decided was that when his parents were going out, they would lock that door so that he couldn't go in and have access to the oven, for example, or the hot plates. But he could still microwave up some, snacks if he wanted to eat something. So he had his own place, but there wasn't as much, I guess, some of the safety risks we avoided by doing that. And it was also, the way that we framed it was a chance for him to practice at living on his own so that he could be more independent. And the goal was for him to be able to live out in the community with support. And that's something that we're very excited to say is happening. So it was very much about building independent living skills. And we also, because of the trauma history, I also referred the family, come on in, to a trauma specialist. Because I specialise in autism, but not trauma. Of course, there's overlap there. Okay.
So through Lydia's intervention, we'll call it, and my husband and I are starting to listen to each other, which is what we used to do before Matt started to have behaviours and impacting our life. We've actually seen a trauma counsellor now who have worked through some of those issues with Matt. And as you can see here, this was one of the first workplace that unfortunately Matt's not there, but we had to put a travel plan together. So it was always about looking at Matt and his future needs because we are ageing, and what can we do. So we were lucky enough to have that room attached to our house that was a TV room. So we modified it and started that, looking at Matt and what his future needs were and working towards independence. So it was very modified, trust me, but it worked. And with that comes responsibilities. So with most of, our children and youth with autism, if they get that goal kicked and the routine's there, they actually work towards that quite well. So travel training was quite difficult. So I would catch the bus or the train. My husband would follow. And we marked all of the spots where Matt had to learn to catch the bus and the train. And after a few weeks, he actually managed it quite well. So that was one of the goals that we ticked. He's not at the workplace anymore. He's actually at a new workplace. We go to the next click. Yeah. So this is Matt, and Matt actually lives independently now. So as of the 22nd of November last year, Matt moved into a little tiny 2-bedroom house. And this is Matt cooking his meal. So we have supports obviously around, and I'm a bit like this lady said, I'm very determined and driven. So NDIA provide that support a few nights a week, and he still comes home and stays. He'll ring up on a Friday and say, can I come home, Mum? Yep, no worries. And he eats every Tuesday night at home, no different to our other children. So this is Matt at home, as you can see, huge dinner, 3 crumb cutlets. And checking the potatoes, and if you can notice, we've taught Matt to have the saucepan handle at the back, so it's really hard, and you can't see it, but there's signs everywhere for him to have a look and to remember about those. Okay. Washing. Oh my goodness, you wouldn't know how hard it was to teach somebody to turn the dial. But when we looked for the washing machine, we looked for the simplest washing machine that Matt would be able to handle. So as you can see, he's got a front loader and he just has to turn the dial and press a button. vacuuming. Typical boy. Look at the background and the clothes basket in the back. I've just looked at that. But he does it well. So I'm really happy with him. I'm very proud of him. Okay, so Matt now works for House with No Steps 4 days a week. And these are his friends that he's met while working. And he actually works with House with No Steps on all of the waterboard sites. And so with that comes another group of friends to know, because there's all the workers at the waterboard. So they're his friends. Oh, this is Tom and Matt, and we're in Fiji. So Matt did have to have his own room, and we did have to stick to structure the whole way through. We couldn't, go away from dinner from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock because he just wouldn't have coped being away from home. But it worked, and he had a great time, and we all had a good time with Matt too. Yeah. So he went for his L's 13 times. 13 times, lots of study. It took him 3 years to learn to drive. And we found this amazing woman in Newcastle who works with young people who have a disability to learn to drive. And after we'd paid out all this money to another agency, and he got his licence first go. So that's pretty good. So, yeah. And the best part about it is he's just like driving Miss Daisy. He's a really good driver. Because of his autistic nature, he follows the rules. He won't go over 60. And the light says amber, he stops. So it's really good to see. And like our children are 40, 38 and 36, and they all say, he's a really good driver. So considering they probably were really bad drivers at that age, being P-platers, that's good. And we've just into relationships. So that's a whole new ballgame, because with the relationships comes the girl's family and her friends, and how Matt's trying to navigate his way around that. So yeah, that's a bit difficult at the moment.
You just bought a sexuality resource.
I did. I just bought one, actually. I thought it's time to do that. So I just bought a book on sexuality. Have that chat again. Because before it was theory, now it could be in practice.
Yeah.
So we're very real in our family. So, but that's Matt's story. But I suppose we went to Lydia through our referral because things were really cloudy and we needed to have some grey matter and black and white. And I think we kind of got caught up in the emotion and the problems. Does that make sense? And we needed to step back and have a look. And about planning, that's the best. I suggest, and every year we still do that with Matt. It may be a month and it may change, but we work really hard with all of our support around us. We have lots of family who are amazing. And yes, I do use NDIA, and their plans are amazing because I make sure that they are. And I get what I want for him and he gets what he wants. So it's a bit of both because I have to manage that.
And Kim also makes sure that she doesn't spend all her money in one place. She spreads out her supports with different service providers so that he can have more workers in his life, have relationships with different people, and they can offer different things.
So Matt loves the football, as you could tell from an early age. When we first, Matt came to our house, he was just very, very busy. And anyway, so through the love of football, he sat down and started to write out the football names, the people's names, the teams and the scores. And typical, he can know them off by heart now. You could ask him 10 years ago and he could tell you. But now we're onto the laptop, so we don't buying as many books. He has a laptop and records them. But you have to be really planned at what you want with Matt. So therefore, with one agency, they go to the grand final. So Matt goes with those guys. And I'm very careful about how much money they have of his plan. He likes Bathurst, the races. So he goes for 3 days with a service provider. I've just got somebody to come on a Thursday night, and my goal is to have Matt actually engage in the community without my husband and I involved. Because usually the carer ends up sorting it out. So I want it to be about Matt. So that's our next goal. But anyway, that's our story. Thank you for listening.
If you'd like to ask us more questions, we have a stand, the Autism Professional Circle stand, which is next to ASA and that huge swing thing. And so I also run workshops on autism and do customised training, and there's an Autism Professional Circle online forum. And particularly that's been really helpful for people around NDIS to be able to ask questions. So happy to talk more about those things if you'd like to come to the stand as well. Thank you.